Hello, my name is Harris Bard, once again for Pond Life Aquatics and Tropical Fish London. I'm an aquarist with over 20 years of experience in keeping fish, and I run Northwest London's biggest and best aquatic centre. And in today's video, we're going to be delving into the fascinating world of Neon Tetra. Just last year, over 2 million Neon Tetra were sold in the US alone. They are not only one of the world's most popular fish to keep in aquaria, but they exhibit truly stunning colours and really fascinating behaviour, like spiral dancing when having mating rituals, which is just some of the things we're going to cover in today's video. Let's get into it.
Neon Tetras were first discovered in 1934 by Auguste Rabot, a French explorer in the Amazon rainforest near Iquitos, Peru. While on an expedition to collect butterflies, an indigenous woman drew his attention to a small, brightly coloured fish. Recognising their potential, Rabot embarked on the challenging task of collecting and transporting 13 specimens back to Paris. The journey to introduce Neon Tetras to the world was fraught with obstacles. In 1936, 5 of these fish were destined for the Shed Aquarium in Chicago. However, transporting live animals on the Hindenburg, the airship chosen for their journey, was prohibited. To circumvent this restriction, the fish were cleverly declared as fish preserves. Sadly, only one Neon Tetra survived the transatlantic voyage with an estimated value of $3,000. Despite the challenges, the surviving fish created a sensation in the aquarium world. That same year, renowned ichthyologist George S. Myers scientifically described the species. He named it Hyphisobricon inesi in honor of William T. Innes III, a prominent figure in the aquarium community who had provided Myers with preserved specimens. The common name Neon Tetra arose years later, inspired by the fish's striking, almost iridescent coloration. Neon Tetras are native to the blackwater and clear water streams of the Amazon basin in South America. They are found in southeastern Colombia, eastern Peru, and western Brazil, where they inhabit the tributaries of the Amazon and Orinoco rivers, including areas around the Siamese River. These streams are characterized by slow-moving, acidic waters with dense vegetation and subdued lighting. The blackwater environment derives its name from tannins released by decaying organic matter, which stain the water a dark brown hue. In these dimly lit waters, Neon Tetra use their bright colours for communication and species recognition.
So if you were thinking of setting up a tank specifically for Neon Tetra, I did do an aquascape for Neon Tetras relatively recently, which I will leave a link here if I can figure out how to do that. If not, it will be in the description below. But as you can see from the aquarium behind me, this is what we sell out of usually for our customers. This aquarium isn't ideal in terms of what I would keep at home, but it does give a good example of some of the basics of what you would need to keep Neon Tetras effectively. It has sufficient filtration in the form of 3 separate bubble filters that you can see bubbling away behind me.
It has a heater keeping the tank stably at 22 to 24 degrees centigrade.
It's also got external filtration on it and plenty of live plant in the form of Java fern and najas, which is also known as guppy grass, which is excellent for a lot of tropical fish. We also have some things like bogwood in there that offer hides for the fish. We do have quite high lighting in these aquariums, although not particularly photosynthetic lighting, hence only the low light planting in here. However, something extraordinarily interesting about Neon Tetra is that they can adapt to the different lighting you give them. If you put them in highlight, they will adapt their colors to reflect off that high lighting, while if you give them something like a low light tank with lots of botanicals in it, which is much more like their natural environments, they will also adjust their colors and give you a beautiful show if you do decide to go for a blackwater aquarium. When it comes to minimum sizing for Neon Tetras, it's important to go no smaller than something like a 40-litre aquarium. And personally, I think that is too small. I would never recommend keeping neons in anything less than something like a Fluval Flex 57, but I do think that you get the best coloration, the best behaviors out of them when you keep them in something like a 90-litre plus. Even keeping them in 100, 200-litre aquariums, they are such a stunning fish that exhibits such beautiful behaviors. I think it is worthwhile having a large aquarium with a massive shoal that can showcase this fish's beauty and natural majesty. So when it comes to keeping the correct size tank for Neon Tetra, I think it's important to not just look at what the minimum requirements for keeping them is, but to talk about what I personally think would be ideal for keeping them for first timers. So in the last video I made, I set up a home 65 that I aquascaped plenty of live plant, which has stunning light and is really quite perfect for keeping Neon Tetras and is really just a good starting point for keeping Neon Tetras. However, I think you could go even better for a relatively similar budget. Personally, if I was going to keep a blackwater aquarium at the moment, which I am doing sort of with my Bentosi Tetras, I would definitely go for something like a Superfish Scaper 90. Having some light sand with a beautiful piece of bogwood like this, beautifully aquascaped with some large stones that have things like Anubias, Bucephalandra, and Java fern connected to it. And then in the sand substrate, having something like cryptocorin placed into it. Although this aquarium has very high lighting, if you gave sufficient botanicals, like I've talked about in previous videos, you could get a beautiful black tea stain to the water. I think there is something to be said about a blackwater aquascape, and this idea was executed beautifully in 2 months ago's issue of Practical Fish Keeping, where they actually kept a Scaper 90 with different kinds of blackwater appropriate fish. I feel like keeping Neon Tetras in a tank like that would be absolutely stunning. On the flip side of that, you could go for something extraordinarily heavily planted, where you could have something like the Scaper 90 or a Home 85, the upgrade of what I used in my previous video. You could go even heavier on the planting than I did. Personally, I would go for large jungly plants like Ultraanthera cardinalis, Limnophilia sessiflora or heteroflora, different types of hygrophilia, plenty of cryptocorin, and possibly some carpeting plants. Because Neon Tetra prefer lower pH, you could even go for something like CO2 injection, which lowers the pH and ultimately takes away the limiting factor of growth for a lot of aquarium plants. Also, with the brilliant lights that these aquariums have, they can really exhibit the stunning coloration that things like Neon Tetra have. Obviously, if you didn't have the space for a 90-litre aquarium, you could go for something like the Fluval Flex 57. Although it is slightly smaller, you can keep a nice small shoal of Neon Tetra in it. The lighting is sufficient to grow some stunning planting, and it is a really beginner-friendly aquarium, and is why it's probably the most popular aquarium in the market at the moment. Now, when it comes to water parameters for Neon Tetras, they are extraordinarily adaptable and have been kept in the trade for such a long time that water parameters really aren't something that beginners in particular need to be concerned about. pH can range anywhere from 6 to 8, while general hardness can go anywhere from low 2s up to all the way to 19 like we do here in London. Now, if I was going to recommend to someone something to aim towards if they were that way inclined about getting their water parameters correct, I'd say aiming anywhere between 6 and 7 pH and 2 to 9 DGH would be absolutely fine for keeping Neon Tetra. This can be achieved in the north of England with softer water, but in London in particular, where we are obviously based, the only way to achieve that realistically would be by using either something like a water softening system or remineralizing something like rainwater or RO water. Now, while I personally think it is absolutely worthwhile to be setting up a Neon Tetra only tank, a lot of people are interested in what you can keep with them. Neons are extraordinarily peaceful and can be kept with a wide variety of different species. They can be happily kept with pretty much every other Tetra species, but I would recommend things like Cardinal Tetra, they're very similar looking cousins, Ember Tetras, Lemon Tetras, Bentoses, or even some Bloodfin Tetras that we have behind me. Also, you can see in the tank that we have some corydoras catfish. Corydoras are absolutely stunning tank mates for Neon Tetras. They are very peaceful, very full of character, and I'll definitely be doing a species spotlight on them in future. Moving away from South America, you could very happily keep them alongside things like rasbora, daisy ricefish, plenty of different kinds of loaches, and yes, even with something like Siamese fighting fish, which personally I have done many times in the past, and I think they complement each other beautifully with their strong colorations. The main thing to think about when you are picking tank mates for your Neon Tetra is to think about what space you have. And as I've discussed previously, in what size aquariums you should be keeping Neon Tetra in, it does very much limit what you can keep alongside them based on the amount of literage you go for in terms of your aquariums. It's also worthwhile bearing in mind what kind of planting you have, and if you realistically want to go for something like a blackwater aquarium. A lot of South American species will be very happy in a blackwater area. Lots of rasbora will. However, there are other species that I haven't mentioned that may not get on with blackwater as well as Neon Tetra will, and you should always check compatibility online, specifically for the fish that you want to keep alongside them. I will always recommend doing a specific search if you see a fish that you want. For example, if you stumbled across something like a daisy ricefish, something you wouldn't see in a lot of aquariums, it is worthwhile just pinging that into Google and you will get a very worthwhile set of answers on specifically keeping daisy ricefish with Neon Tetra, for example. When it comes to planting an aquarium for Neon Tetras, I think there is one of two ways you can go about it. Personally, I am such a huge fan of heavily planting loads of different plants into an aquarium, and I think that I get the best coloration out of a lot of fish when you have highlighting with lots of plants to give them cover. However, doing Neon Tetras in a blackwater biome is absolutely a very valid and very natural way of doing things. And when you are planting, it is important to understand that using blackwater will affect which plants you can keep. For example, I wouldn't be keeping a Ultraanthera cardinalis, this stunning red plant we have here, in a blackwater setup. The amount of light that's going to be able to get through the tannins is not going to be sufficient, and unfortunately, something like cardinalis would die. Whereas keeping something like this stunning Java fern trident on some bogwood would absolutely be worthwhile doing. As I showed previously, something like the Superfish Aquascape 90 would be absolutely stunning, and I have seen it done with blackwater, some Java fern, cryptocorin, lots of low light, stunning species that can survive and thrive in a blackwater environment. Now, if I was a beginner who wanted to keep something really easy, but also wanted to plant up an aquarium, I would be looking at something like this, which is a new plant we've got in from Aquafleur. It is an actual clay pot that has Anubias growing out of the top of it. I think things like this are extraordinarily easy for beginners to keep and can just be placed into the aquarium, give fish something natural and beautiful to live around, while also not having to worry about planting into an aquarium itself, which means you don't have to worry about substrates, and can also just go for something like a dark sand, which would be hugely beneficial for a Neon Tetra to make their colors pop. Something other than this, you could use something even more natural, like planted bogwood, which we sell here in Saw, and I think they are just wonderful to really make it easy for beginners to not have to worry about aquascaping in particular, while also being able to give their aquariums a real natural feel. Now, something that's slightly more advanced but can be extraordinarily extraordinarily rewarding is breeding Neon Tetra. Now, this isn't something that I would generally recommend to anyone who isn't experienced in breeding fish. However, it is a really interesting product to embark upon. If I was personally going to be doing it, I would have a singular breeding tank that I would have blackwater with a general hardness of anywhere between 2 and 4 with a low pH of around 4 to 5. I would have my breeding pair in the tank. I'd feed them up with high quality live foods like bloodworm and daphnia, and I would try and keep my water parameters as stable and perfect as possible to encourage breeding. When Neon Tetra do breed, they do this beautiful embrace where they kind of twist around each other, and females will lay up to about 100 eggs at a time. The males will then fertilize their eggs, and it is extraordinarily important that you remove the breeding pair after the eggs have been laid. They will very readily eat their own eggs, and it is important that you remove them so that you can make sure that you have a batch of eggs to rear on. These eggs are susceptible to fungus, and it is something that you should be very aware of when partaking in a breeding program. It's important to have plenty of live plant in the aquarium so that the breeding pair have somewhere to lay the eggs initially, and also to give as much life and stability for the eggs to be reared on. This is something I personally don't have experience in and do feel somewhat uncomfortable talking about. However, I have researched it thoroughly in the past and has been something that I've been very interested in doing in the future. If there's anyone who has done it, who happens to watch me, let me know if there's anything I should add to what I've said, or if I'm just completely off the mark. I might link a video or an article on the specifics of breeding Neon Tetra below, just so I can give a more in-depth piece of knowledge than what I currently possess, if that is something that you're currently looking for. When it comes to disease with Neon Tetra, it is something that you have to be quite aware of. Although neons are very easy to care for, they are quite susceptible to something called Neon Tetra Disease, which is characterized by fraying fins, lethargy, and obviously death. It is something that is extraordinarily hard to treat for, and once you see it, it is something that is contagious to your other fish. So it is important that you cull the specimens that you see exhibiting Neon Tetra disease. Neons are also susceptible to things like ick and fungus, and unfortunately, the main reason why you'll see this in the aquarium trade is due to poor water parameters. It is extraordinarily important to have sufficient filtration for your Neon Tetras that keep a stable water parameter, and you do not give increased stress to your neons, which can inevitably lead to things like ick, Neon Tetra disease, and fungus. If you do get any of these sicknesses and you want to treat them, there are plenty of treatments available. I personally recommend the NT Labs range of cure disease, their methylene blue, and there are plenty of white spot treatments on the market that work wonderfully. And that's it from me at Pond Life Aquatics. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the fascinating world of Neon Tetras and are, if anything, inspired to keep a Neon Tetra tank, whether that be a stunning, deep, dark, blackwater aquarium or a heavily planted, dense aquascape. Neon Tetras are one of the most popular fish for a reason, and I hope I've managed to articulate that efficiently in this video. If there's anything that you feel like I've missed out on, let me know down in the comments below. If there's any questions you have about keeping Neon Tetra, then feel free to ask me and I will reply with anything that you need to know. And if I don't, I'll do some research and I'll let you know. I just want to say thank you so much to all the support that everyone's given us here at Pond Life Aquatics, whether it's through viewing the YouTube channel and liking and subscribing to our videos, or coming into the store itself. It's been so amazing to meet people who have seen our videos and have come down and bought things in store, or just come down to generally enjoy what we're trying to do here. Please let me know what you would like to see from our channel, whether you would like more room tours when it comes to getting new stock, if you would like item reviews, if you would like more species spotlights, then just let me know and I'll more than happily make them. But for now, that's it for me here at Pond Life Aquatics and Tropical Fish London, and I hope you'll join me again for this Pond Life.